Okay, thank you for joining us for another episode of the podcast. And I'm excited because I have a friend here with me today. It's Lucy Colangelo. And Lucy is in Ontario. Actually, I like to say that. I don't know. I find I don't have a lot of Canadians on the show, so I like to shout that out. So Lucy is actually the creator of Shine On, which is a framework and a process of self-activation to live your best life. And I love that, connecting creative life to love. That's what I'm all about. So what her focus is right now is having this conversation with parents and teens and encouraging parents to have this conversation with their own teens so that they can start their own internal work for their self-empowerment. So thanks so much for being here, Lucy.
Sharla, thanks so much for having me. And yes, Canadian.
So tell us a bit more about the Shine On method. We'll just jump right into it right there.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So Shine On came about out of my marketing and communications career. I was helping people with businesses figure out what their mission and their vision was and how to curate a authentic voice online in their marketing and their social media. And what started to happen is they started to ask me to work with their teens, with their young people. It just sounds so funny, but they were like, you're helping me do work that I should have done years ago. And I want my, son or daughter, college aged, high school age, to have this kind of clarity in their life. And I want them to feel powerful in their life and, kind of feel anchored, I guess was the word we were using a lot those days. And so, I didn't really see it at first, right? I was a marketing business education training. I don't work with people on this kind of a level, right? But the more I started to look at it and the more experiences that I did open myself up to in working with teenagers and young people, young adults, I found that it was so fulfilling. So incredibly, I was impacting their lives at this young age. And I was getting testimonials like, you're changing the trajectory of my child's life.
Wow.
Right. And so that was very moving. And so I started to really focus and adjust the framework, the Shine On framework, to be about this interior work, this cultivating, figuring out what's that greatness that's locked up inside of you that we can break open and see and look at and develop. And, I talk to young people all the time about what's it going to mean to you to live your best life? Where you're really excited about life. You wake up every day and it's just awesome. Right. And it's led me into an area where that's an exciting, fun conversation on any day, but it's bringing me into the mental health area with young people that are in struggle, because any kinds of things can happen in that those teenage years. And funny story to talk about, when I was saying my clients would ask me to work with their children, was because I would ask questions that would take them to their childhoods, to their teen years, to high school.
Wow.
The stories would always go, well, back in high school. And I was like, well, how did we get to high school? What? And so, what we think about ourselves, how we understand ourselves, how we see the world and our future and what our potential is, a lot of that gets decided in those early years, in those formative years. And so that's where I'm at today. I sit there and I see it now more clearly than ever before. And it's that we're not in this conversation early enough. So I want to be that parent partner. I have a 12 and 14-year-old. So I am in the trenches with you. I am figuring out how to have these conversations with these kids that are into their digital medias and gaming, and they're into their lives with whatever activities they're into, and they still have schooling to do and everything else. But are they really getting to know themselves? And there is this awakening that's happening in your teenage years. If you reflect, you can realize, yes, those were the years where you started to see a future for yourself and who you could become. So that's where I find myself. I'm in this framework. It's a method. It's structured. There's 14 questions, and we go in. We do these dives in, and that structure supports us because we repeat those questions and we come back and we revisit, and things get more clearer. And it's a very simple framework. So it's open. It's an open framework, and it's open to creativity, and it's open to discovery, and kids are really curious about what's possible for them. So there's no way to get it wrong. So it frees them up to have fun. And so, yeah, so that's where we're at with it.
I love that. I love it. I
Yeah.
just think, like for myself, I feel like doing discovery, I guess I'd say personal development or personal growth, or kind of really getting to know myself and what I liked and what life I wanted to create. And I guess finally understanding or realizing I could create anything in my life that I wanted. It didn't have to be, this set, high
Yes.
school, post-secondary education, the job for 35 years. It doesn't have to be like that. And,
No.
and I didn't learn that until I was in my 20s, So having this conversation so much younger, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing.
So, and I want to point out, like, it's really important to see that you don't have to have that breakdown. Like, there's usually a crisis that causes that
realization.
There's like realizations, there's some sort of milestone moment. I've had people freak out because they turned 30, 40, 50 and have to have a conversation with me about like this clarity mapping thing that we do. And it's really funny. It's like, you can just go inside. You can just go in and take a look and be curious and see what comes up. And it's a safe thing to do. It's a fun thing to do. There's not a lot of risk involved. It's just a creative type of exercise. But yeah, when you're young, you don't realize it. And you think you're the only one. You think you're the only one having the conversation in your head about these things. And we tend to be really hard on ourselves. So just saying these things to young people is transformative. Mm-hmm. So that's what I do with parents. I invite parents into the conversation. I have right off of my website, you can download a parent guide, and I have 8 tips, which are basically 8 suggestions for a type of conversation to have with your young person. I love starting really young. So I'd start like as young as you can. Yeah. And it's interesting. We tell little children, like, think of, the kindergartners, you can be whoever you want in the world. You're just so amazing. You're so brilliant. And then like the older they get, somehow we just lose our energy for like building them up and giving them that juice, like that confidence. So I say, like, this conversation needs to be continuous, needs to flow through like the 8-year-old, 10-year-old, then the tween 12, 13, that's a very special age, right? They're just awakening. They're starting to realize, hey, something they do can cause a consequence. And they're starting to learn responsibility. They're starting to discover their passions, what lights them up, what are they interested in, those types of things. And then their compassion, what do they care about, right? These things are just starting to awaken. So if parents are in this conversation with them at that young age, it normalizes not knowing. It normalizes that you have to be curious to discover these answers for yourself. And a lot of times it's challenging for parents because it's putting the child in the driver's seat, really. It's like you're moving over and you're letting them drive, and you're in the car with them still, but I very much liken it to getting a driver's license, like navigating the roads, control,
right?
And there is a losing control element. There is, like, there's the parent knows best thing. I know my child best thing, but then there's things that you can't possibly know about your child. Like, I have fun conversations with my kids all the time. Some days they're not really open to them, but I'll ask them, like, you came here to do something. You were born to do something. What were you born to do? Like, what are you here to do? And I tell you, like, when they were little, they had phenomenal answers. They were so like clear. And then that's what's kind of inspired this also, is that I've been enjoying my parenting journey, and I've been enjoying telling my kids every chance I can that I don't know, and that we're going to figure it out together. Right. Okay. And the not knowing is not a scary thing, and that we can do hard things too. Even if it is scary, we can still figure it out. Right. And it's been interesting figuring this out. This has all come about in the same time frame as COVID came into our world, into our lives. And so I found myself naturally in that same conversation. We don't know. We all, as a human race, are figuring this out right now, together. And this is the conversation we're in, and it's a hard one. It's complex, and it's causing all kinds of issues. And we're trying to figure out this big problem, right? And my children just were like, "Oh, okay." Like the grown-ups don't, I love saying the grown-ups don't know what they're doing. And the kids just kind of like, they get scared for a second and then they're like, oh, yeah, they don't know what we're, nobody knows what they're doing. Whoa. Oh, and it's just freeing. It frees you up and you're just like, oh, okay. The scrutiny is, you're gentler on yourself when you realize everyone's figuring things out together.
That's so true.
So yeah, so it's the conversation. I want the parents to be in this conversation, introducing it as young as possible. And then I talk more and more about how to gauge if your child's ready for the conversation.
I was going to ask about that, like, are there all kids? Like, some kids probably easier to have these conversations with than others. Like, how do you gauge
Well,
that?
I've had the range. Okay. I just want to like frame it up. So you can have that young person conversation, like picture like a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, 12-year-old. You can have that. It's imaginative. Nothing's really happened in their life yet. They haven't had any disappointments. Things haven't really like derailed, or they haven't really like gone for that promotion and been like fired instead or something, things have not happened like that yet to them for the most part. I mean, there are challenging things that do happen. Absolutely. But for the most part, things are not as dramatic and difficult. And yet kids still get stuck and find themselves in anxiety and depression and all these things, right? So I'm not making light of it. I'm just saying that for the most part, if we're not in this conversation, we are risking something too when we're not looking at it, right? But I have had this conversation with parents whose children have finished university and college, moved back home. And yes, granted, this whole COVID thing is happening in the time frame that I'm talking about. So the world was different during this experience, but having not had those conversations, they are having the same conversation for the first time, and they're dealing with a 20-plus-year-old. Okay. So it's possible to be having this parental conversation at an adult age. Okay. So I just want to put that out there because that's the range that I've operated in. I have had those sessions and done the clarity mapping at that age group as well. And that question that comes up, that really easy one that helps like gauge the barometer, if you will, of where's your child at, is initiating some sort of a conversation that has to do with, hey, one day you're going to be a grown-up. What's your life going to look like? What are you going to be up to? Right. And you'll get the child that says, I'm going to be right here with you, mommy, and I am not going anywhere. We're going to cuddle every evening. I'm just going to be right here. Well, they're not ready for this conversation. That just tells you right there. If everything has to say exactly the same as it is right now, and they're not at all curious about who they are, what their life in the future is like, it's not, I'm not saying it's going to be like traumatizing or anything to go there and explore with them. You can come at it with different, but if you're dealing with a 6 or 8-year-old, yeah, they're just going to tell you that just life is awesome. They just want things to be status quo. Right. Yeah. But if you get a child that's like, I'm going to be a this and a that and the other thing, and I'm going to live over here, and I'm going to be doing this, and I'm going to own this kind of car, and I'm going to see you at Christmas time, and I'm going to bring this, and we're going to go this, and like all the activities, and they have this vision, this is who you're engaging with, someone that's totally ready. And sometimes the child's ready before the parents are. So, they're becoming this new person, they're future casting, they're envisioning who they're going to become. And the parents are like, you're my baby, you're my little guy, you're like, and so it's really interesting. Yeah. Anyone that's been on the parenting journey will understand what I mean when I say that sometimes you're not ready. You're not ready for, like, it can be as simple as like remembering when they first learned how to walk. Were you ready for that? Right? Like, and now they're mobile, and now the house has to be a certain way. And, I don't think that we're ever ready for when our children go to the next level. But I want to be in that. I'm suggesting that we should be prepared and be in the conversation so that we can be supporting and keep going in that conversation instead of avoiding it or not realizing that it's happening because they're ready. And that preteen teenage is when they're ready. When there's more anxiety, when they're getting stressed out about things, if they're at all having any kind of doubts and they're questioning who they are, if they like themselves, things like that. They're in that conversation. They are trying to develop the skills to empower themselves. They're searching, they're seeking for that. So that's where I come in. That's where the tools that Shine On offers, the framework offers the support, and it kind of demystifies what it means to know yourself.
What are the tips for, the teenage boy who doesn't talk much? You get the
sure.
The one answer grunts.
Or just plays video games all day, every day, and that's all they want to do, right? So I've had this question before. The quiet ones, it's very interesting. I came up with one exercise with one mom because it was very minimal, the communication. There wasn't any way to get an answer of any engagement. One word answer replies when you're trying to connect, right? So I had her make a slideshow of her child's life. And I said, not too long, but just go pick your favorite photos from the day he was born, a couple photos every year, tell a story about those photos, tell a story about who he is, like the things he's done, the things he said, the funny things, the great memories, this and that. Tell him a story of him becoming somebody and that you don't quite know just yet who he's going to become. And you're trying to inspire curiosity. Like by the time they're in high school, there's going to be a pressure to decide what college, university, what's the next step in education, or is it the workforce and what is it? And you want to give them that best opportunity, right? So if you've got a child that's not engaged and not talking, you're going to have to get their buy-in. You're going to have to do something that's going to inspire them. And this exercise I've done with my own kids several times. I stumbled on it by accident. It was just what my phone did. My phone put a bunch of pictures together when it did the facial recognition. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like picking up on all my son's pictures. And so I sat him down and we had a quiet moment and I was like, Mommy has to show you something. I think he was 10 years old, something like that, 10, somewhere in that window. And I was like, I just don't know. I wonder who you're going to become. I'm just so curious. Like, look at how you're growing up. And the visuals were really powerful. Okay. And he just told me, he's like, I don't know. And started to be panicky and his breathing changed. And I was like, yeah, you're not, it's okay. You don't, of course you don't know. But it's fun to look at and think about, right? And so now he'll every once in a while he'll start telling me a story, like he'll start telling me some puzzle piece of something he's curious about. Like today he just did it. It was so funny that he did it. He just said he thinks he wants to be an engineer because he just likes and he thinks it's mechanical engineers because he's fascinated by how cars work. Right. And I just loved that he connected that something caused him to be curious. It got his attention. He's watching some YouTube videos about how these electric cars work. Okay. And, and maintenance. We had to change our winter tires. And my dad is a mechanic. So it's kind of in the genes, I guess. And he really wanted to go and switch out the winter tires. And so I made arrangements that we did it at a time when he could go. And he went and did it. And he was so excited. He came and saw me right after school, came here in the office and was telling me about how he really wants to learn more about that. Oh, cool. And then he's like, but I don't know. I don't because we have to be careful. This is really important. We really have to be careful that we don't do this like happily ever after thing. Where it's like, in that hole already. Right. Like just like on a certain track. Right. And like they call it tracks in schooling and stuff like that. Like there's flexibility in those, like you can navigate and change your path. Right. But like, I can't be sitting here telling you my son's going to be a mechanical engineer and he's going to be making the next generation of electric vehicles because he showed some interest in changing some tires and watched some YouTube videos. But, you know,
I think that's probably what often happens though with parents and little ones,
we just, yeah. And there's this, like, so I call it happily ever after, doing that, this happily, and then their life is set. It's all decided and figured out and like happily ever after. Right.
Yeah.
And that there's like a set it and forget it mentality around these really formative, these core decisions that are made.
Huge decisions. Yeah.
Huge, right? And so I want to encourage that we embrace this impermanence. There's an impermanence to a thought, to an idea. It's just, it's like a box of chocolates, literally. I know now it's going to be like Forrest Gump. I just realized that I'm going to this, but like, there's flavors to things. Or clothing, you try it on, you see if it fits, you see if you like what you look like. Like, it's the same thing. You're trying on careers, you're trying on any body of knowledge that you might be drawn to discover more and go deeper. Right. So really need to tamper our energies. Like, if our child shows any sort of interest in any kind of health, don't like write, they're going to be a doctor, just like the pressure of medical school. Like, you know, or they're 14 and they're in grade 9 and they just were like really curious about, like, I don't know, like the whole thing right now in our household, we watch Netflix and we're learning about vegan. Like, there's documentaries on like how nutritious it is to eat plant-based, how good it is for the planet and everything. So then, like, explaining to the kids, I don't think any of us know how to actually properly nourish our bodies. Like, there's so many ways, right?
Yeah.
But we're in this curious kind of exploratory phase. So it's just like, don't label yourself. Like, no, don't go around saying you're a vegan. You're exploring that. Maybe you want to have a few vegan days. And we do it in our house. We try things on. We're figuring it out. There's not a permanence to it.
I love that. Love it.
And there's this creativity that comes in. Like, just wait for it. This, like, not scripting it and not being in control can be exhilarating. The payoffs are huge because you just don't know where it's going to take them. You don't know where it's going to take them. And it should be exciting. It shouldn't be something that's fearful.
Yeah. Love that. So there's something that came up to my mind earlier, and you're talking about, them making their vision of what they see for their life. I'm always about dreaming big,
Yes.
You never want to minimize anyone's dreams, especially kids, right?
Right.
But what do you do? Do you do anything? Do you kind of bring a flavor of being realistic or logical or anything, or no, you just let it go wild? What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's like, I'm going to say, like, it's the context is everything in that conversation. Okay. Your question cannot be answered without context. Right? If I have an adult child or a child that's in the later years of high school and having to figure out their next move in education, if they're still on I'm going to be like a rock star and I'm going to be just like Justin Bieber or something, let's like take a look. That's what the clarity mapping helps with, because there are 14 questions, so they can get very specific. You can go real deep into, one of the questions is about your strengths and what's unique about you, right? So everyone's got a talent, a skill, a gift, a strength. Everyone does. I believe that wholeheartedly. I think that we all come and bring something special. It's unearthing that, it's finding out what that is. And so the context to answer your question would be, how much is that in alignment with, like, your child, right? So is it in alignment with what their capabilities are? And are you in that conversation about strengthening those capabilities? If you want to be a rock star, you probably need to be able to sing and have some musical ability, right? So like, and so not to squash the dream, but explore it. Like, actually go rent a guitar.
The way you just shifted that. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you, it's far, how do we say this? I want to say it's the most economical thing you could do is invest in this exploration young, Because if you give them that opportunity to go learn how to play a guitar, go take a music lesson, a singing lesson, like put them into these things and have it not be permanent, like not you're tied to this. Well, now you're in this music course for the next year and a half. Like, no, we need to be in exploration and discovery. It needs to be a curiosity that's being nurtured and supported. So then again, this is still context. Like, have you done this exploration? How much are you discovering and helping to guide your child in mapping this out and clarifying these things? And are they receiving feedback properly? Are they able to receive feedback, right? If they're not willing to listen to reason and that there isn't a talent there in, let's say, this musical ability or whatever, that's not being, it's like they're ahead of their time or whatever. We are dynamic, right? We are not one thing. So I would never, like, I literally want to say like poo-poo on someone's dream. That would be awful, right? But to think that there's just one would be sad. So allow for that dream and expand and invite more. Bring more, illuminate more of what this life, this future looks like for this child.
Yeah. Instead of squashing the dream, like you said, explore, and they will come to their own conclusion.
And nurture it and expand that there are more dreams. There's more than just one dream, right? And I think I did it with a young girl. We went online and I had to show her that Rihanna is not just Rihanna the singer, but she is, I think now officially a billionaire, and she has a couture brand, Fendi, and she sells clothing. She's like like, it was like, what? And you can have multiple dreams come true. Like I think that's the part of life that really makes life exciting and like all of it worth it, right? When you get to try things, fail, try again, just keep going, just being in this discovery, exploration, this curiosity, it really builds resilience. It builds a certain kind of mental toughness that I strive for. I strive for in myself, and I try to role model it for my kids. So, and I love being in this conversation with you and sharing this with anyone that was wanting to be in this kind of conversation with their children, because we just need to tune into that. We just need to realize that that's an opportunity for a conversation. There's always that opportunity for the conversation, and our lives get so hectic and busy, and we're in the day-to-day, and we need to be having those bigger conversations, like be dreaming bigger, be communicating about those things, exploring them. And I think that it will pay off in the long run.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Like it's a lot cheaper to just pay for some music lessons and possibly purchase a guitar or rent one you can rent instruments. Let me tell you, I've done it a few times. Like my son explored saxophone at the end of this summer. And, as opposed to going on that track to try to discover and explore that and get into music school post-secondary, after high school, and realize that's disappointing. That was fruitless, that wasn't really fulfilling, and that wasn't really as enlivening and inspiring as they thought it would be. And, and not making them wrong for it either. Oh my gosh, I've had so many conversations with kids like doing this kind of curiosity discovery work for themselves. And then the parents are like, well, that didn't lead to anything. And I'm like, fine, it didn't lead to anything. It's what was lost here?
Really.
Not much. You save them, you save some time from like, what do kids do now? They spend a lot of time gaming and social media and watching Netflix or something, consuming content. Like, what was lost here? So I feel like it's just worth it to be the one to initiate this conversation, to put it front of mind, like take some time, plant these seeds, show your support that you want to be in this discovery conversation with them.
Yeah.
Make it safe, make it loving, make it kind, and like, just, make it as fun as possible. I mean, it's the rest of their life. It should be, they should be excited about it.
Yeah, love that. No, I'm so excited for this work that you're doing. I
Thank
love
you.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's really important work. So if
Thanks.
parents do want to join in more in this conversation with you, you do have a Facebook group, right?
Right. Okay. So everything, kind of the jumping off point's my website. So lucycolangelo.com. So off of there, and I'm sure the links will be available wherever you're watching this video. But yeah, you're definitely welcome to come to my website, download the parent guide. The parent guide will take you to an 8-video series on tips for getting into this, what I call conversations in greatness and potential. So it's like 8 videos. They add up to about an hour's worth of listening, I believe. And then there's an invitation in there to join the family circle, the Shine On Family Circle. So that's my private parent group. And that's who I'm hanging out with and starting to lead in this discussion on a weekly basis with new content. And then the new thing that's launching is the Shine On experience, which includes this clarity map that I've referenced a few times today. And there will be Q&A with me, and there will be a bonus experience of taking what you learn about yourself in your clarity map and making a vision board for 2022. So that will be the bonus. So everything goes live December 27th. And if you want to purchase this experience for yourself and your young person, your teenager, to do together, that's available through just getting on my email list. So getting on in the family, Shine On Family Circle, or going in through signing up for the video series, you will be on my email list. You will get the invitation to become part of that group.
Love it.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Lucy.
Thank you, Sharla.
All this wisdom and help these young people. I just love it so much. Like,
it's my favorite.
I love it. I love it. I can't find it.
You know what? It's my favorite conversation. And I just want to say, I think that I never forgot what it was like to be a teenager. I think that that's what my gift is. Like, I think I remember so much about how I felt in those early years. And that just stayed with me I'm 45 now. I don't mind saying that, but I just still remember. And now I'm raising young people, my 12 and 14-year-old, and I still remember how fresh and new the world was in their eyes. And they need support. They need this framework of understanding. And that's what Shine On offers. It's a framework for this kind of conversation. And that's what my work is to just keep parents. I want to inspire and support them in having these conversations with their young people. Because I can tell you, even the most, what I'd say, like maybe turned off child, like checked out and turned off and disillusioned, maybe just you would possibly say that they seem passionless. I don't think that that's a natural human way of being. And we can find our way. There's hope for everyone, and not to give up. Try different things to be in this conversation, and join us in the Shine On experience if you're drawn to the work, and you can go deeper and find that support, and the light will go on. There is something in them that will shine, and you will see it. And when it happens, it's the most exciting experience. And to be a part of it as a parent is powerful. Will stay with them the rest of their lives. Awesome. So that's the work I want to invite everybody into. So thank you for the opportunity to share that.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks.